It's Phumlani Majosi, the author of Lessons from Past Heroes. It's awesome to be back on the show. Big news, of course, around the world, in the Middle East, in the early hours of last Friday morning. This is morning in the Middle East. The Israel Defense Forces launched Operation Rising Lion, a military offensive aimed at dismantling Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure. According to the Israeli government, the operation's objective is to neutralize Iran's nuclear capabilities. I opened up in my column that was published on Politics Web last Sunday, titled "Israel versus Iran." So do read up on that. And I thought I should read this to build the context to my conversation with a very fascinating Israeli. I've heard that she was once a South African, so maybe she can tell us more about that during our conversation if she feels like doing it. Rolene Marks, she is a speaker and commentator on Israel and appears on radio as well. She is based in Israel right now. Rolene, how are you? And how are you and your family doing at this very difficult time?
Good morning. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And, if I mysteriously disappear and you hear some loud clanging noises, that will be the warning that we get from the IDF Home Front Command that we have to get near shelter before the sirens and the barrages from Iran come. So, how are we? We are exhausted.
Mm.
We're not getting a lot of sleep at night. Iran tends to fire at our civilian areas during the night, and the sirens, of course, and the interceptions, and some of the impact sites are very close to where I live, are very loud, and for our safety, we need to go to shelter. So we are exhausted, but let me tell you something, Phumlani, the spirit in this country is second to none. Naming this Operation Rising Lions is very, very symbolic. First of all, it's biblical because it comes from I think it's the book of Numbers. It says a lioness, a nation that rises like a lioness lifts itself like a lion. And of course, it references the lion in the middle of the old Iranian flag, the lion in front of the sun. So it alludes to our two ancient cultures. And also because this nation is really, really rising like a lion to take on the Iranian threat. That doesn't just threaten us here in Israel, it threatens America, Europe, the region, and the free world. So Israelis at the moment, exhausted, doing the best we can, listening to the Home Front Command safety guidelines, but also extremely resilient, standing behind the army, standing behind all of our leaders. This is a very, very, very cohesive, across political spectrum operation, and standing behind our responders, our first responders, who are just magnificent, and supporting each other. Phumlani, we are even being polite and standing in queues. That is completely out of character for Israelis, but we're doing it. We're supporting each other during this challenging time.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, so tell me now, so you are saying that there is much support for the Benjamin Netanyahu government on this, military offensive on Iran. You are saying that there is support inside the country. It's huge support. That's what we are saying.
Absolutely. This is not a partisan issue.
Yeah.
This is an issue that I think whoever was sitting in office as prime minister and identified the threat, because we do know from our intelligence, backed up by CENTCOM yesterday, that Iran were very, very close to that nuclear bomb. In fact, they were approaching testing phase, which puts us all in danger. And watching some pundits, I think it was on GB News yesterday morning, one of them said, this is Prime Minister Netanyahu trying to, retain a hold on his power because he's facing corruption charges. This is not it at all. You have seen the message coming from the opposition, coming from the various political parties, from the president, all through Israeli society. We know that we have lived with the Iranian circle of terror that surrounds our country for decades. Hamas in Gaza and other terror entities, Hezbollah in the north, the Houthis, and various other terror entities, all sponsored by Iran. Iran has told the world of its intentions for decades to eradicate what they call the Zionist cancer, that the state of Israel must be annihilated. In Tehran, there is a clock that counts down to the destruction of Israel. And unfortunately, we have learned through our history that when somebody tells you their intentions, believe them. And if they've got the means to carry it out, stop them. And I was interested to hear former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett on, I think it was Talk TV in the UK just 2 days ago. And he was asked, would you have done the same thing? He said, absolutely. He said, in fact, I would have done it 10 years ago had we had the munitions. So this is very, very much supported by the Israeli people. We understand that we are paying a massive price. We understand what is involved, but we are absolutely resolved. And of course, we can't forget our brave brothers and sisters in Iran who have lived with this oppression for decades. Women oppressed, many of them beaten, tortured, even killed for not wearing the hijab properly. Members of the LGBTQ plus community. It is Pride Month around the world. Some of them as young as 13 hanged for their sexual orientation. The complete lack of freedom, the cracking down on any protests, on any dissidents. And we want to see our brothers and sisters in Iran free. It's not our stated goal, but if it helps them, then the people of Israel are standing with the people of Iran.
Mm-hmm. But so can the Israeli forces can they really destroy Iran's nuclear infrastructure completely? Right. I was reading somewhere, someone was this is a Western intellectual was saying that it can be very difficult. Besides the resources, that you might need more resources and that it might take a lot of work. But the fact that you may destroy the infrastructure, but there is also human capital. There are skills, and for sure there could be more people inside Iran who still know how to how to manage the nuclear program, how to to get to a process where one can create a nuclear bomb. So it's difficult to crush the knowledge of the people, right? So you can crush the physical infrastructure with the nuclear sites, but crushing the knowledge and skills, that might be more difficult. And it could happen that in a month or a year or two or so, this process begins again from Iran of being in a of the efforts to build a nuclear weapon. How to respond to that?
Well, I think that's a very good question. First of all, I think this has woken up the international community. And as the German Chancellor Merz said yesterday, he said Israel is doing the dirty work for us. And Iran will way past the threshold or the nuclear safeguards as backed by the IAEA. They gave their report last week, which is why we acted so quickly. So I think even if we aren't able to destroy every vestige of the Iranian nuclear program, we can certainly set it back decades. And we might get to the point where the international community are going to have to decide, are you a Churchill or are you a Chamberlain? But I think what we've seen from the IDF, from our astonishingly brilliant pilots, is they have come in very quickly, very hard, and they're destroying the assembly line as much as possible. This morning, reports from the IDF that at least 20 centrifuges have been destroyed. We're going for those individual plants. We're going for the scientists. We're going for the IRGC. We're going for the army. And as the Prime Minister said in an interview with I think it was ABC a few days ago, he said, even with regards to the Ayatollah Khamenei, that, we're going to do whatever we're going to need to do. We've heard the language coming in from President Trump in the last 24 hours, certainly ramping up his rhetoric. Let's see whether or not America join. I think they've got the bigger hardware that can deliver those final blows to the nuclear program. And if we do damage enough to the IRGC, to the police, it's going to be very interesting to see what momentum we see coming from the people of Iran. There were reports in some news channels that in the Kurdish areas of Iran, they're standing ready to push out the regime, to bring in freedom. So we are living through incredible times in history. I think if you're a spiritual person, this is biblical. This is really the war of Gog and Magog. We're down to this big battle. And, as I said just moments ago, the world needs to decide. You are either a Chamberlain or you are a Churchill. And I think the West has become complacent over the decades because they have forgotten what it is like to live with the constant fear of annihilation. We haven't. This is the moment that we, the people of Israel, have been preparing for decades.
Now, Rolene, let me ask you this question as well. There are people who, there's a pushback in America by some elements, including Tucker Carlson. You do know Tucker Carlson, I'm sure, pushing back against or criticizing any involvement of the US in this situation. I guess my question is, if the US, let's take, by the way, I have the same observation with you, and that is President Trump seems to be more willing to do something, right? He seems to really want to get in there and fight along with Israel. When it does that, when exactly, I'm not sure. But let's take a case where the US would say, Trump would say, look, I'm not getting involved in any sort. I'm not giving Israel any hardware to do the final blow on the nuclear facilities of Iran. If Trump were to say, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to send my army, I'm not going to give you any hardware, Professor Neil Ferguson, I saw him, the Hoover Institution historian, he was saying that if the United States does not give Israel hardware, another option would be for Israel to take out the Ayatollah, right? Take out the political leadership, which Israel hasn't been doing yet, right? They've been taking out the military people, nuclear facilities, not the political leadership. Now, Professor Neil Ferguson says that another option would be for Israel to take out the political leadership, right, in Iran, and then cause chaos within the Iran country, and then let the Israeli troops get inside the places where they have to do the final blow of these nuclear facilities. He says that would be the second option. If the US would say, we're not getting involved, we're not giving you hardware, that would be another option for Israel to pursue. What are your views on that?
Well, first of all, to reference Tucker Carlson,
I should say, what options maybe other than if the US doesn't send the hardware, what options do Israelis have?
I find it very interesting that people like Tucker Carlson weigh in with such confidence because they're not in the situation room. They don't get the intelligence. So as President Trump tweeted, somebody tell this kook Tucker Carlson that Iran can't have nukes. So To paraphrase many people on the social media platform X, no nukes for kooks.
Yeah.
We're going to go with that option. Look, Israel's not asking anyone to fight our battle for
Mm.
us. I think our lesson from history is that we know what it's like to be a nation eradicated alone when the world did not come to our assistance. And the lesson there is, we have to make good on our vow never again. And if never again means going it alone, so be it. But I think that Israel would have considered all eventualities, all plans B and C,
Yeah.
should we not get the backing of the United States. But and it could have been a possibility had President Trump not been elected president. If we were
That's
dealing
true.
with another administration, we could be seeing a whole different scenario. But I think that, this would be a moment where some of our other allies would have to decide, are you going to speak in platitudes and keep, with your throwaway line, we can't allow Iran to have the nuke, or are you going to do something about it? And at the moment, Israel is the country that is doing something about it. And we really appreciate our strongest ally, the United States, stepping in. And I would caution the United States, anyone who does object to their involvement, when the Ayatollah and the IRGC and their supporters chant death to Israel, death to America, death to the United Kingdom, death to the West, they're telling you what their intentions are. Are you going to defend not just us, because we're doing a great job by ourselves, but are you going to defend your own people? That is the question I would ask them.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a very, very important question. And it seems to me, and I want to get your thoughts here. It seems that because you cited the guy who is the Chancellor of Germany, that paraphrasing, Israel is doing the dirty work for them. It seems there is support for this, what Netanyahu is doing, especially in Western countries. I sense support here because I saw the G7 statement that was released in Canada in the last few days, and I'm just trying to look for it here, where they were basically saying that, well, Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. That's what they were saying. I'm just trying to find this statement here, but there is support here, in my judgment. Am I correct that there is widespread support
There is support.
for what Israel is doing?
There is support. I think they understand very well that even if you take out the nuclear element of this whole issue, we have the terror element, and we've seen Iran through their proxies attack our Western allies on their soil. Now, could you imagine those proxies armed with nuclear weapons in the streets of the United States or France or Germany or the United Kingdom? Could you imagine what havoc that has? And I think they understand that we're not fighting a political issue here. We're fighting an ideological issue. And it's important people understand that. Because when we look at all the moving parts of Iran, their proxies and the wars involved and what surrounds Israel, and people look at Gaza and they say, well, that's about land and that's about, they use the pejoratives, colonialism, blah, 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 blah. It's not. This is an ideological war. This is an ideological war, and sitting at the helm of it is Iran. Their ideology pushed by the Ayatollah al-Khamenei is that they need to eliminate the West. They need to eliminate what they call the great Satan, America, and the little Satan, Israel, what they see as the Christian world and the Jewish world, in order to create the circumstances that brings about what they call the 12th Mahdi, which is some kind of in that stream of fundamentalism is like some kind of messiah. This is what they want. So this is not about territory or expansionism or anything political. This is ideological. When in the days after the 7th of October, Israelis were saying to Western people, the West is next. Because we understand this very, very well. And I think a lot of people in the world, and certainly our allies, are maybe starting to wake up to the fact that, hang on a second, this is not about territory and politics. This is about civilizations.
How much of because one of the things I wrote in my column last Sunday was that I do believe that October 7 was so huge to Israel that we are also here because, because of the October 7 attacks as well. Besides the fact that the Israeli leaders have been concerned for a long time that of the nuclear activities of Iran, but October 7 was really one of the things that made Israel to realize that, you know what, look, we are going to pursue our enemies. And what the main enemy there is Iran, because Hamas would have never invaded, at least in my view, Israel on October 7 if it wasn't Iran that was backing them, funding them, supporting them, and other militias in them in the Middle East. So do you agree with that October 7 was really a trigger for Israel to be this rising lion that you speak of, right?
Well, we have been speaking about the Iranian nuclear threat for a very,
yes.
very long time, even prior to October 7th. But I think we learned a very, very brutal lesson on October the 7th, and that is we cannot take our eyes off the ball in any arena, not for a second. And our focus so much was on Hezbollah, which was the big Iranian proxy to our north. And you could see we went in against Hezbollah very, very quickly and eliminated Nasrallah, eliminated the top chains of command. They're very, very, let me get rid of that. We eliminated the top chains of command there very, 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 very quickly. And we learned that Iran's intentions around that time was that once Hamas attacked, we would see this ring of fire around Israel, and that would push for the elimination of Israel. And we were able to take all of those proxies, and we're even dealing with the other irritant, the Houthis, in the weeks and months after that. But we knew we had to turn our focus to the head of the snake. And the head of the snake is Iran. And we had a very, very limited window of opportunity. And I think when we got that IAEA report last week, coupled with the intelligence of how far they had enriched their uranium and how far they were in the process, that we had to implement what we had been training for years, and that is Operation Rising Lion.
Yeah, I'm speaking to Rolene Marks. She's a speaker. She's based in Israel. She is a speaker and commentator on Israel, also appears on radio as well. So we are just, the war rages on between Israel and Iran. We are catching up on that. And she is, she's saying, I mean, it's one of those big events in human history. I do agree with that as well. As Israel pursues a military offensive aimed at at dismantling Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure. I found this quote, Rolene, from the G7. I quote, "Iran is the principal source of regional instability and terror. We have been consistently clear that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon." This is the statement issued by the leaders of the US, UK. These are G7 nations. And then there's one thing I wanted to tell you about. I'm sure you did see this. A post by the Senate GOP, Senate Republicans on X yesterday, where they were saying 83% of Republicans support Israel's strikes against Iran. Right, that's a huge number, 83%. And apparently the poll was done by Grey House. Well, it's a Grey House poll. I'm trying to say here that there seems to be, even though you can have voices like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and so on, but it seems like I would argue that, in fact, I saw one report by Fox News as well saying that the vast majority of Americans they support Israel's strikes against Iran. I do believe that America still holds
I've
a strong
lost your
base.
audio for a second.
Can you hear me now? Rolene, can you hear me now?
I lost audio.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Ah,
you now.
no, I was just saying that they still, it's even though there can be personalities like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, I think there is still a strong support for Israel in the US. Can you still hear me now? Can you hear me, Rolene? Ah, I've lost you, Rolene. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Oh, Rolene, can you hear me? Rolene, can you hear me now? Oh, the network must be very bad. She did say that the network was. Can you hear me now, Rolene?
I can hear you. Disappeared for a second. Because I'm in the shelter and everything, it's very, very intermittent.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
I understand the situation here. Do you have any comments on what I said? Did you get a bit of?
yes, so let's deal with. Well, Tucker Carlson, I think, has earned the nickname Tucker Carlson because he
Yeah.
certainly sounds like the mouthpiece who's increasingly not just anti-Israel, but anti-American. Candace Owens, I think, has lost the plot completely. She put out a tweet, I think it was yesterday or today, that's completely unhinged. Completely,
Mm,
completely unhinged. And I find her very hard to take seriously because I think that she is so consumed with Israelophobia and anti-Semitism that her opinion is worth nothing. But I think smart people know, smart people who've watched the landscape develop, who understand that it's not just Israel and America who are a threat here, it's also the region.
yeah.
We know that what we hear in public from our regional countries, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, etc., is very different to what Israel is hearing behind the scenes. We've had something quite phenomenal happen this week. We had Syria say, guys, our airspace open for you.
Mm, mm,
Um, we are still flying over Iraqi airspace.
yes.
Flying, you know, what could be said to the press on one hand and what is done on the other hand is very different. In the region we say we speak Arabic,
Yeah.
and we understand these countries. We understand that they're saving face for the street, or they don't want to draw any Iranian attention. But we also know behind the scenes they're very happy that Israel is doing what we're doing. So I would say, Tucker, Candace, sit down. You're speaking from your mansions, wherever you are in the United States, in positions of
Mm,
extreme privilege, but you are not dealing with the threats that we in the region are. And if we don't deal with these threats, those threats are going to land up on your doorstep. And then I think you're going to be singing a very, very different song. Qatar money or no Qatar money.
Now, yes, we have 6 minutes left now, Rolene. My big question, and I've been wrestling with this, and that is, about the future?
Phumlani, I wish I was a prophet, but I can say I can't tell you what the future holds, but I
Yeah.
can tell you what my hopes for the future are. My hopes for the future is that we will have an eradicated Iranian threat, that the regime will be overthrown, that we will see the Abraham Accords across this region spread and include our neighbors, Lebanon, Syria, and other countries who want to join our circle of peace. But more important, I say to my Iranian brothers and sisters, you are the bravest out of all of us. We are a nation of lions, you and I. And one day we want your pride and our pride to join together. We want to bring our ancient cultures, the Persian culture and the Jewish culture, who have had bonds for millennia, not centuries, millennia. We want to rejoin those bonds with the Cyrus Accords and bring peace to our people. And I
Mm.
think the peace between our people will transform the world. To my sisters in Iran, I say Zan, Zadegi, Azadi. Women, life, freedom. May this be a reality for you and for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, we are saying that if the issue of Iran would be confronted and Iran gets, let's say, it happens that they get leaders who are not hostile to Israel. You are saying that that would then achieve peace in the Middle East. Israel would be, accepted. It's already being accepted, as you spoke about the Abraham Accords and all of that. You are saying that if there wasn't this thing of Iran or this leadership of Iran and the leaders in Iran who are not hostile to Israel were to take place, we would see peace in the Middle East. That's what you are saying.
I think so. I think
Mm.
they are the biggest disruptor of peace in the Middle East. And yes, we can have a different conversation about Qatar and Qatar's influence there. But I think if you have a completely different balance in the Middle East, you will see something very, very different.
Mm.
And I think once the head of the snake is taken care of, is eliminated, I think that is a fatal blow to all their proxies, Hezbollah, who've already been warned by Lebanon, you're not dragging us into anything.
Yeah.
Hamas, and on the subject of Hamas, we can't forget that we still have 53 hostages being held captive by Hamas. We want those hostages home now, including the remains of Joshua Molel, Tanzanian from the continent of Africa. I want people on the continent to know that it's not just Jews or Israelis held captive, it's Muslims, it's Christians, it's people from countries all over the world that are still held captive. And they are held captive for one reason, because of a terror organization who is backed by the biggest state sponsor of terror in the world, Iran. And we might be doing the dirty work, but our fight against terror is your fight against terror.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rolene. I really appreciate the time you have taken to talk to me. I know the very difficult circumstances that you are facing, you and of course the entire population of Israel. So we really appreciate, and I'm just glad that there wasn't any huge disruption. As we're talking right now, it was just a network. You were not being told to rush somewhere, and run away from something. So I appreciate that. So thank you so much for joining us. Rolene is the speaker and commentator on Israel and appears on radio, TV, and print as well. She's an Israeli based in Israel. So wonderful to talk to you, Rolene, and I wish you safety. Given the circumstances. And I wish, not just you, all the people of Israel safety at this very difficult time.
Thank you so much for having me. And let me tell you something. I have never been more proud, and I've never loved my fellow citizen more. We're an operation of rising lions, and this nation has risen like a lion, and I could not be more proud of them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rolene. We'll chat soon.
Thank you.
Phumlani Majozi. We'll chat soon.